11 hours after closing arguments in the Sonya Massey murder trial, the jury returned with a verdict. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Well, guilty of second-degree murder, not first-degree murder like the prosecution asked for, and like many of you in my comments suggested from my last video would have been appropriate. Hey, I'm America's attorney. I've been a lawyer for over 24 years. I've helped almost 3 million people. Let's break down the final moments of this trial, the verdict, and then, of course, what comes next. As you most likely already know, this trial is over the murder of 36-year-old Sonya Massey back in July of 2024. Massey had placed a 911 call reporting a possible prowler. Deputies from the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office in Illinois responded, including our now convicted felon deputy, Sean Grayson. Body camera footage later showed the encounter escalating in Massey's kitchen. She had removed a pot of boiling water from the stove after being instructed to do so by Grayson, and then uttered the words, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." Something, we've all said to people at 2 a.m. Grayson ordered her to drop the pot and then almost immediately fired 3 shots, striking her just below the eye while she was unarmed. And not only was she unarmed, but she was nowhere near him and not in a position to injure him, much less to threaten his life. Well, after the Illinois State Police completed their investigation, Sangamon County prosecutors charged former Deputy Sean Grayson with 3 counts of first-degree murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, and official misconduct. Prosecutors allege Grayson knowingly and intentionally used deadly force against an unarmed woman who posed no threat. Defense attorneys argued that Grayson fired out of fear that Massey might throw boiling water on him, insisting that the shooting was a split-second decision made in perceived self-defense. For more specifics on the witness testimony and the arguments made in the trial, I hope you'll check out my video that I posted this past Tuesday, but for now, let's move on to the verdict. I'm killing it. I'm killing it. I gave you nothing for my outtakes.
You sure about that?
On Wednesday, October 29th, 2025, the jury convicted Grayson of second-degree murder. In Illinois, the difference between a first-degree murder conviction and a second-degree murder conviction largely comes down to intent and mitigation. First-degree murder requires proof that a defendant either intended to kill, knew their actions would cause death or great bodily harm, or acted with a strong probability of death or serious injury without any legal justification. It carries a sentencing range from 20 to 60 years in prison, and aggravating factors can extend that to life in prison. Second-degree murder, on the other hand, is defined under 720 ILCS 5/9-2, and it applies when those same elements of first-degree murder are present, but there is evidence of a sudden and intense passion resulting from serious provocation or an unreasonable belief in the need for self-defense. In other words, the defendant still intentionally killed someone, but the law recognizes a partial mitigation that reduces the moral blameworthiness. As a result, second-degree murder is punishable by only 4 to 20 years. And in rare cases, probation may be granted, reflecting that the act, while still criminal, lacks the full premeditated intent or cold-blooded deliberation of first-degree murder. The jury's verdict suggests that they believe Sean Grayson's actions were intentional but not fully premeditated, aligning with Illinois' legal definition of second-degree murder. Jurors likely accepted the prosecution's argument that Grayson unlawfully shot Massey, since she was unarmed, standing several feet away, and posed no immediate threat, while also recognizing some elements of emotional disturbance or fear on the part of the shooter. Their decision implies that they did not find sufficient proof of the deliberate or knowing intent required for first-degree murder, but instead saw some evidence of a sudden, unreasonable reaction consistent with imperfect self-defense. In essence, they concluded Grayson was culpable for an unjustified killing, yet they stopped short of labeling him a cold-blooded murderer. Testimony from Deputy Dawson Farley, who said he never felt endangered, and the body camera footage showing Massey stationary and pleading, likely anchored their finding that Grayson's fear was irrational but sincere, an emotional overreaction that transformed a moment of panic into a criminal act rather than a premeditated execution. Grayson's sentencing is scheduled for January 29th, 2026, which is just about 90 days away, which means that both the prosecution and the defense will be making their final submissions, and the victim's family and the community will have an opportunity to address the court. As I mentioned before, a second-degree murder conviction carries a potential sentence of 4 years to 20 years in prison, and the law even allows for probation in some cases. Given the nature of the crime and the public attention surrounding it, it's highly likely the judge will impose a significant prison term, probably between 15 and 20 years. Prosecutors are expected to argue that anything less than a substantial prison term would undermine public confidence in accountability for law enforcement. Sidebar, public confidence in law enforcement is potentially at an all-time low. Judge, if you're watching this video, based on precedent in Illinois and similar police shootings resulting in convictions, such as Jason Van Dyke's 2019 sentence for the killing of Laquan McDonald, Grayson's punishment will likely fall closer to 16 years, signaling the court's effort to balance the jury's reduced charge with the moral gravity of killing an unarmed civilian. In this particular situation, as in many murder trials, the jury has nothing to say about how long this sentence will be. This comes down completely to the judge's decision, and the decision of the judge is very hard to change on appeal. So pretty much whatever judge says is what it's going to be. Now, the verdict in the Sonya Massey case does represent a meaningful step toward accountability, but it also leaves major gaps in what many sought as full justice. On the one hand, the jury's decision signals that even law enforcement officers can be criminally responsible for using deadly force under questionable circumstances, that a home invasion response, a woman who called 911 for help, did not shield the shooter from conviction. It reinforces the idea that the criminal justice system can at least identify misconduct and impose some penalty in a police-related killing of a black woman in her home. But on the other hand, the verdict does not fully reflect what many community members and the victim's family and civil rights advocates were all seeking. And many of you in my comments agreed with them. Because the jury declined to find Grayson guilty of first-degree murder, there remains a sense that the conduct, firing 3 shots at an unarmed woman inside her own home after she called you asking for help, did not receive the level of legal condemnation that a first-degree murder conviction would have provided. Hey, I could not agree more. But here's the problem. Imagine a world in which earlier in that same shift, Grayson told his deputy partner, Farley, hey, tonight I'm gonna kill somebody. Now, if those were the facts that were in evidence, it would be very obvious that it was premeditated. But there was nothing like that. Grayson, what he did is evil for sure. He killed her. But his main crime is probably that he's just like really stupid. With sentencing scheduled for January of 2026, eyes will be on whether the court imposes a meaningful prison term that reflects the gravity of Sonya Massey's death. But this is also a call to you, the viewer. Stay engaged, ask questions, and hold systems accountable. Share this video. Hey, lawyer up with me, America's Attorney, by subscribing. And most importantly, drop your pro se opinion down below in the comments and let me know what you're thinking. Was the jury's verdict fair? What would you have decided had you been on the jury? And what sentence do you think that the judge should impose? Let me know what you're thinking. And I'll be back soon with more legal breakdowns. Remember, I'm on a ride to 50,000 subscribers. I'm this close. Hit the button. I'll see you soon. His deputy partner, they believe Sean Grayson's did not receive the legal